Now, just when you thought you knew all the ways to identify and classify triangles, I'm just going to tell you right now there are more. There are more ways to identify and classify triangles, and today that's what you're going to be learning. Hi, I'm Yo from Hand to Mind, and this is the fourth day of the 10th week of our fourth grade Teach at Home series. And we're going to continue our lessons on identifying and classifying triangles. So, without further ado, let's get started. Today will be our second part on our lesson series on identifying and classifying triangles. So let's jump right in. So before we talk about triangles, I want to just talk about shapes. And we talked about how shapes have sides and vertices, right? And the sides are going to be the straight lines that make up a shape, right? So this one has 4 different sides. Whereas the vertices are going to be the corners where the lines meet, right? And vertices is the plural form of vertex. So this is a vertex, and all of these are vertices. Now, we talked yesterday about classifying right, acute, and obtuse triangles by the measure of their vertices. So an acute triangle has 3 acute vertices. A right triangle has at least, well, only one right triangle. We talked about that challenge yesterday. Try drawing a triangle with 2 right angles. Nope, a right triangle only has 1 right angle. And then an obtuse triangle, well, an obtuse triangle has 1 obtuse angle, whereas the others are going to be acute, right? Same with the right triangle. The other angles are going to be acute angles. 1 right angle and then a right triangle with 2 acute, 1 obtuse angle and an obtuse triangle with 2 acute angles, and then in an acute triangle, once again, all of the angles are going to be acute. And there we go. Now we talked once again about identifying them by their vertices. Well, today we're going to be identifying triangles by looking at their sides. That's what's going to interest us today. So, there are 3 types of triangles that we can get from looking at their sides. The first one is called an equilateral triangle, and that is a triangle whose sides are all the same length. So here's a triangle whose sides are all the same length. You might be wondering, what are these little lines on the triangle? Well, those lines aren't necessarily part of the triangle, but a lot of people, when drawing triangles, put these little lines on them to show you that the length matches on each side. So any side of any shape, really, but in this case a triangle, that has a line on it, that shows you that it has this length. And if you see other sides that have this line on it, the same line, then that shows you that these 2 lengths are equal. And in this case, this length, or this side, and this side are all equal in length. A scalene triangle. A scalene triangle is a triangle whose sides are all different in length. So there's an example of a scalene triangle. And once again, we see these lines on the sides of the triangle. And now there's actually a different amount of lines on each side. So remember how in the last triangle, every side had only 1 line. Well, that's because every side was the same length. But in a scalene triangle, each side is going to have a different number of lines. A different number of lines signifies that each side has a different length. And this might make a little more sense when we look at the next kind of triangle, which is called an isosceles triangle. An isosceles triangle is a triangle with 2 sides that are equal in length. Only 2 sides. So if we look at this isn't an isosceles triangle. And if we look at 2 of the sides only have 1 line going through it, which means they are the same length as each other. Whereas this side has 2 lines going through it, which means it is different in length than these 2 sides. So, an isosceles triangle has 2 sides that are equal, an equilateral triangle has all sides that are equal, and a scalene triangle has no sides that are equal. They're all different. So those are the different types of triangles. So just to see where we are in our knowledge of this, let's classify each triangle as an equilateral triangle, a scalene triangle, or an isosceles triangle. So if we look at the first one, we notice that I see the one line going through each one of the sides, so that to me tells me that's an equilateral because these lines signify that they're all the same. Whereas this one, I see that this is a different size from this, or different length from this side, which is a different length from this side, because this only has one line through it, this one has two, and this one has three. So this has to be a scalene triangle. Scalene as in all different lengths. Whereas this one, I see these two sides are equal in length, and this one is different. So this is an isosceles triangle. All right, so now I did some, and I'm not going to give away the lengths. I just want you to be able to look at them and then tell me which one you think it is. So for this one, it looks like these two sides are equal in length. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that's probably an isosceles triangle. For this one, they all kind of look like they're equal, so that looks like an equilateral triangle. For this one, this is a little more challenging, but this one looks just a tad shorter than this one, and they both look a lot longer than this one, so that has to be a scalene triangle. And similar here, right? I see a very short one, a fairly long one, and an even longer side, so this is also a scalene triangle. Well, thank you so much. Tomorrow we're going to finish off this series in identifying and classifying triangles, and we're going to combine everything we've learned so far. So please join us tomorrow, and in the meantime, please visit handtomindAtHome.com for more resources, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.